This was our MinisForum computer at the end of the last video. In this video, we're going to look to enhance this computer slightly by adding something to the fascia. Of all the things we could add, we are initially going to add a couple of USB ports as an easy upgrade. And this is the USB pass-through socket we're going to mount on the fascia. As you can see, it supports two Type A USB sockets, both front and back. So we will cut a circular hole in the fascia and mount it here. Our first task is to get the computer out of its rack case by removing all of the securing screws. We can do this easily, leaving the connecting brackets attached to the maker beam frame. Remembering to remove the air vent to give it some room for manoeuvre, the computer can now be slid out of the rack case. And now that we can see the internals of our computer, we next need to locate the motherboard header for the USB 3 socket. And there is the socket we will be using. So we will need a USB 3 cable that will split this into two separate USB connectors. And here we have a suitable cable, not too long and providing two USB 3 sockets. So plugging this into the motherboard, we now need two additional cables to connect these sockets to the pass-through sockets which are going to be mounted on the fascia. I've gone for the shortest cables I could find in order to prevent cable clutter inside our case. Checking that the cables fit the pass-through connector, we now have the task of cutting a hole through the polypropylene fascia. But first, to make this task easier, we'll need to free it from the maker beam frame. With the previous computer, we mounted a graphics card in a module beside the main computer. But for this computer, we're not planning on having a graphics card. Looking at the space behind the fascia, I'm planning on fitting the USB 3 pass-through connector on the opposite side of the fascia to the power switch, keeping it clear of the CPU cooling fan. So marking where the cuts need to be applied before removing the fascia will make sure we cut in the right place. Removing the securing screws from the corner cubes will allow us to slide out the fascia without having to disconnect the power switch. This should give us enough room to cut a mounting hole for the pass-through connector. And now we can start the delicate task of using wire snips to cut through the polypropylene fascia. Not perhaps the easiest task, but once you've cut a small hole, you will be able to use a small power tool to make a circular hole for the pass-through connector. This does, of course, take a little time, so I've sped forward, and we can now fit the pass-through connector, securing it in place. Now all we need do is to replace the fascia in the maker beam frame and reattach the corner cubes. This is, of course, a very minor upgrade to this computer, adding just two USB 3 ports. However, the pass-through connector does provide an elegant way to add these valuable ports without taking up much space. And making use of motherboard USB headers is something that is often overlooked, unless your pre-built case has front panel sockets and supplied cables. Now with the pass-through connector in place, we merely need to connect the short USB 3 cables to it, and our upgrade is complete. A little tidying of the cables, and we're ready to slide the computer back into its rack case. While this upgrade has been completed, it's not the last we will be seeing of this computer. Hidden away between the Ethernet port and the CPU heatsink is a small connector. This is a socket intended for those wanting Wi-Fi. Although a Wi-Fi card is not supplied with the motherboard, there is a mounting kit and holes in the I/O shield for Wi-Fi aerials. The specification for the motherboard reports this as an M.2 2230 key E Wi-Fi slot. The Ethernet port is 2.5 gigabit, so for myself I don't see the need for Wi-Fi in this computer. However, I'm going to be looking to see what other than Wi-Fi we can fit into this port, but that's for the next video. So, fitting the computer back into its rack case, we can see how it looks. And there we have our computer with its 2 additional USB 3 sockets. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching today's video. Please feel free to click on the link in the description below to discover more videos.